Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's really a great pleasure for me being here today and to talk, or maybe to try to introduce for some of you what could be the opportunity and challenges. And I'm talking about the opportunity first and challenges, but unfortunately, maybe I will be more talking about the challenges than opportunities. What is really impressive, and I was really very impressed a few minutes ago, being there and seeing a lot of people, and I was asking myself, why all those people, they came here? Why so many people? They are all here, they are having, certainly, I know that South Africa, or maybe Johannesburg, is really a very nice city. There is the sun, the weather is good, and so on and so forth, but if a lot of people, they leave their office, they left their countries and so on, and they are coming here, it's because they are facing a shortage of energy. And this is really very important. All of us here, we can have different type of agenda and so on, but we are here because there are several people in this continent that will like to have more available electricity, affordable, and also that could be acceptable. And with regard to that, it is important to notice that my organization, and I know that some of you, maybe you may know what we are doing. I am from the International Atomic Energy Agency, and most of you, you are certainly aware about our watchdog capacity. But it is important also to notice that we are trying to maximize the contribution of nuclear in the development. That means that we are working on several types of activities like human health, agriculture, waste management, in addition to our safeguarding activities. And on the other hand also, we are working and we are assisting member states with regard to the nuclear energy. And I am sure most of you, while saying that, you may wish that I will be promoting nuclear. I would like to make it very clear. My role is not here to promote nuclear. My role, or maybe the role of my organization, is to ensure that those that are embarking on nuclear power, they are doing it right. It is why I will more highlight the challenges, because it's very important that one knew exactly what are the different challenges and the difficulties one can face when embarking on nuclear power. You have the waste management, the fuel cycle, one of the toughest issues, that is the acceptance by the public, and so on and so forth. All those issues are so important to be tackled well in advance before embarking on nuclear power. It is why I might say that all countries in Africa may not wish to embark on nuclear power. It will be very difficult for several countries in Africa to embark on nuclear power because this is really a difficult undertaking. And it is why my presentation will be divided into three parts. The first one, I will be talking about the challenges and opportunity, if there is. After that, I will be really presenting a kind of an approach, because it's important to know that there are some countries that decide to embark on nuclear and why they decide that. And later on, I will be talking about, I can say, the support of my organization. Maybe this might help. It is why talking a lot with regard to the challenges, as I mentioned initially, there is a lot of political implication, a lot of difficulties managing the waste, managing the radioactive waste, and so on and so forth. There is also something that is very important, is that nuclear really is one of the field of activities where there is a lot of stakeholders. All people, they would like to be involved in nuclear. There are some with a lot of competencies and being fully involved, from NGOs, or maybe promoting, and some that could even be against without any reasons. There are some without any knowledge, but they are fully involved because they do not want to have a nuclear power plant near to their home, near to their city. That means that managing, and when we know that it is important to have a kind of a consensus when you embark on nuclear, we may find that it will be really, I will not say that it's quite impossible, but it is very difficult really to deal with nuclear. And one of the biggest challenges we faced recently was this earthquake and tsunami that came recently, that also caused an accident, a nuclear accident. And we know that at Fukushima today, there is a kind of an exclusion area where people, they could not live properly. That means that after saying all this, it's become obvious that for a lot of countries in Africa, maybe nuclear will not be an option. But on the other hand, I would like to highlight that we have 30 countries that decide to embark on nuclear power. We are having 2011, 2012, almost 9 nuclear power plants that were commissioned. Maybe one will say, oh, they were initiated initially built well before the Fukushima accident, but just after the Fukushima accident, that means in 2012, we have 3 countries that decide to embark or maybe to build new nuclear power plant. We have Russia, we have Korea, and we have UAE. And what is important to notice is that UAE will be building its first nuclear power plant. Since 25 years, there was no other new country that built the first nuclear power plant, and UAE initiated its program in 2011, and they are planning to have it be commissioned in 2017. That means that there are still some countries that are interested by nuclear. And it's important to know why those people that are interested by nuclear. They should have a reason. They should have, because certainly they assess the pros and cons. I highlight the challenges, but certainly they were able to identify some opportunity as far as nuclear is concerned. We can see that even after Fukushima, even though there was a lot of countries that were considering nuclear, but we still have a lot of countries that are actively developing, being involved on developing a nuclear power program. And even we are having several countries in Africa. If we even see the RRP of South Africa that were finalized in early 2011, we see that the view, or maybe a country like South Africa as an expanding country is still considering nuclear as an option. That means the driver for nuclear are still based on the energy security, the increased demand of energy. We have also the volatility of the oil prices and so on. That shows that nuclear could be an opportunity, maybe for in some region or in some countries. We also know that it is very important to have an appropriate project. An appropriate project could be have to be developed whatever the source of energy production. But with regard to nuclear, there is something that is very important. That is the confidence. And you can see that the confidence and trust are most, or maybe one of the biggest challenges why embarking on nuclear power. And it is why my organization, they decided in 2007 to develop a kind of a way, a kind of an approach in order to embark on nuclear and to ensure that a country will be doing it right. It is why I will then be introducing what we call, for us, because we know that taking a decision to embark on nuclear is not only a technical decision, it is a policy decision. This has a lot of political implication. It is why I will try now to develop, or maybe to present to you, what we call the milestone approach. The milestone approach is a simple stepwise approach, and I know that all of you, you are managing your program, your project, taking into consideration such a stepwise approach. It is why we have the first phase. It is the decisional phase, where it is very important to take a knowledgeable decision. I would like to say, embarking on nuclear is not a simple decision where a minister or maybe whatever a person will come and decide, we will be building a nuclear power plant. You have to assess, you have to justify the need for you to build the necessary trust and confidence internally and externally in order to take this knowledgeable decision. And when you take this decision, then you initiate building the infrastructure. And I will be defining what is the infrastructure, because it is very important, not only on nuclear, but all the source of energy production, to have an integrated view. That means that to have the necessary infrastructure that will be able to absorb the different type of energy, and nuclear, in terms of level of magnitude, will require more, or maybe a bigger infrastructure. And then, when you finish this phase, you have as a milestone, now you are ready to go for the bidding. I can assure you, if you do not have any competencies, the procurement system on nuclear is completely different as compared to buying maybe a solar power plant or a wind power plant. And if you do not have any competencies, how could you be able to discuss with those big companies, Rosatom, General Electric, Areva, and so on and so forth? You will not be having the capability, and it is why you need this infrastructure I will be defining later on. And then you are able now to construct and to be able to operate your nuclear power plant later. If I present it differently, you can see here, you need to justify the need through your energy planning to have a kind of an energy mix where you will define the different source of energy, and maybe nuclear could be an option. And then you are now able to consider the development of your nuclear power program, building your necessary infrastructure, and then being able to construct your nuclear power plant. And this, what we think, based on the experience, based on what has been done by a lot of other countries and so on, that from the initial phase to the commissioning of the first nuclear power plant, this might take something like 10 to 15 years. We have a country that initiated its program recently, UAE. This has been planned for 9 years. After saying that, I will now try to introduce what is the most important of the milestone approach. The most important is the issue for consideration that are the basis of the infrastructure. And we define 19 issues. All of them, they are very important and they need to be initiated from the beginning phase. And those issues will be able to then absorb the nuclear power plant that will be built. But actually, if you remove nuclear safety, safeguard, radiation, and I can say radioactive waste and so on, you can see that all the other issues, all the other consideration has to be taken when developing an appropriate energy program, whatever the source of energy. We have the national position. Taking a decision to embark on an energy source or whatever the energy mix, it's important to have a national position with a long-term planning. Without any long-term planning, you will not be able to succeed. And unfortunately, in Africa, there is a lot of countries that are making ad hoc decisions. They don't know exactly where they are going, and they take decisions to build nuclear power or maybe to build electrical, whatever the source of electrical power, wind, and so on, without knowing exactly where they are going. And if you see the cost effectiveness of such a program, you will always see that they are making a lot of mistakes. The management, the leadership, this is the key. Are we having the appropriate leader to enable us to develop the appropriate energy system and so on? This is a question. The funding and financing. Have we all the method of funding? Do you know all the, I can say, the appropriate system that could help to develop the appropriate energy development in this regard? The legislative, norm and standards, regulatory framework, in terms of grid, in terms of safety, in terms of environmental, and so on and so forth. Have we established the relevant infrastructure, the relevant organization that are able to ensure that a power plant that has been built here will be able to produce electricity for 50 years as has been planned initially because it respects all the norms and standards? These are some of the questions. The human resource, this is the key. I know several countries here where they are building a lot of infrastructure, they build a lot of power plant. But after the completion of the power plant, after the commissioning, they were forced to go and hire people outside the country or outside the continent in order to operate this power plant. Have we developed, anticipate enough with regard to the human resource? The electrical grid, in several countries here, I will not give the name, but we know that in several countries here in Africa, the grid collapses every 30 minutes. I am not exaggerating. Every 30 minutes. And this is a problem because this does not help for the electrical system to function correctly. We have the industrial involvement. There are some countries here with power plants since 60 years, and today they are not able to make even any turbine or generators and so on. They have to always rely outside. They do not build the necessary capacity, the industrial capacity that will help them really to support the development of this energy. With nuclear, this is not possible. You need to develop all this in an integrated manner, and I hope that this, only by following the approach, this could help in order to develop an appropriate energy system in Africa. And when I'm talking about the leadership, developing an energy program is not only because an owner-operator or an utility decides to build such a project, even being a nuclear or even a big hydro and so on. You need to have an appropriate leadership, an appropriate coordination. And for us, with regard to nuclear, we create a kind of a view that is a kind of an organization that will be coordinating in order to ensure that by building the power plant, the government will bring its support, the regulatory authorities, or maybe the different regulatory authorities in plural, they will be able to support, as well as the owner-operator. They may be safeguarded. And after saying that, we see then the importance of the organization that can handle the development of a nuclear power program. The first one is the coordination by the government. This is the key for the beginning. In order to establish the appropriate market, in order to assess, and in order to also to make the necessary feasibility to ensure that the country will be able to have the sites and so on and so forth. Then you have the regulatory bodies. And all those regulatory bodies has to be developed fully in order to ensure that the power plant will be operating safely, securely, and also, as far as nuclear is concerned, respecting the non-proliferation issues. And then you have then the owner-operator. They can only come because they can gain money. They can only come because they know that there is an electrical market. They can only come because they know that they will be able to sell their electricity. Otherwise, our electrical system will always be facing a lot of difficulties. But there is also a group of people, I can say, or organizations or companies that are very important because we do not have all the competencies. And in the nuclear field, we call them technical support organizations. Those support organizations, they need also to be established in order to support the government, the regulatory bodies, as well as the owner-operator. And for that, they should know that there is a market. It is why it's important to have an appropriate energy plan. And in the energy planning, the agency, we develop a lot of tools, and we are assisting countries in order to develop their planning and to be able to make an appropriate assessment and also feasibility of their nuclear power program or whatever the energy power program. We also know that as far as nuclear is concerned, it is very important that a nuclear power plant does not exceed maximum 15% of the total installed capacity. Because you can see that if you have only the nuclear power plant operate in the base load and almost always at 100%, that means that it is optimal to use it at its full capacity instead of using it at 10% or 20% because it consumes the same level of fuel even functioning at 10% or 100%. That means that it's more cost-effective to use it at full power. And it is why it is important to have a really appropriate grid. And we know that there are several countries in Africa that are not able to absorb a nuclear power plant because their grid is too small. It is why it will be certainly important to be looking at the regional standpoint. And we have several power pools that has been developed in Western Africa, in Southern Africa, and Eastern Africa. Those power pools could be taken if really nuclear is an option for this area after a smooth assessment of the energy system be taken at the regional standpoint. We have the human resources. The most important is the people. And those people, and as I said before, we do not have here in Africa all the competencies. It will then be important to be knowledgeable customer. That means that to be able to handle consultant, contractor, vendors, and so on and so forth, and to have the competencies in managing program and big project. We have also the issue of site. No site, no nuclear power plant. That means that it will be important to identify appropriate site. And we know that a nuclear power plant uses a lot of water, but that does not mean that there is no nuclear power plant even in deserts. There are some, and there is a way of managing such a power plant, but this certainly also increases the cost. We have also the financing. We know all the conventional financing systems that are available today. But there are also still now some new financing system. I saw here that there is Rosatom, and they initiate a kind of a new financing system with Turkey recently, and they are building a nuclear power plant in Turkey. We know that there are this Islamic financing system with those sukuks that you can find in Malaysia, in Saudi Arabia, and so on, that can support a lot of energy program, including nuclear program. There is also an issue that is the issue of waste. You know, this is a big issue, and this is one of the main questions that arise. I would like to highlight that solutions in order to manage the waste exist. Unfortunately, the acceptance is a problem. It is not easy for someone to agree having a waste facility near to his house, but the same person would like to have electricity. And it is why in some countries, especially in Europe, in Nordic countries, they were able to identify, for example, in Finland or in Sweden, they were able to build their nuclear power plant at the same time as their waste facilities. And after saying that, what is our role? What could we do? What could we offer? The agency, in terms of support, has developed a kind of a multi-million program that is the technical cooperation in order to assist member states. Even recently, I organized with my team, because we are having several activities, some activities even with South Africa, in order to assist them to establish the appropriate infrastructure I highlighted before. We are providing assessment in terms of need, legislative assistance in order for countries really to adhere in the appropriate conventions and so on. And at the same time also, we help them to establish the appropriate legal and regulatory framework. We give advice to countries for them to become knowledgeable customers. As I said before, we help through several of our tools like MAED, message, and so on, for countries to be able to assess their energy system and to be able to make appropriate energy plan and with different scenarios. We also make what I said before, evaluating the infrastructure. And even 2 months ago, we came here in South Africa in order to evaluate the nuclear infrastructure of South Africa and to ensure that they really have now the capacity, based on their plan, to further continue in building new nuclear power plants if they have now appropriate capacity, taking into consideration the latest accidents and so on, and to ensure that they will be doing it safely. In conclusion then, I would like only to highlight the importance of while building a nuclear power plant, for doing it knowledgeably, first of all, but also profitably, because if it is not profitably, nobody will invest, and you need investor, but securely also, and in respect of the safety. And as far as nuclear is concerned, respecting also the non-proliferation issue. I thank you very much for your attention.